Guide dog pups,
look.
Luna and Clover, are here at 10:45.
And speaking of dogs, Alice Peer is on a mission to give your dog the best night of its life and you a bit of peace and quiet at the same time. She joins us with the best dog beds at 11:05. Now, our next guest is best known for her role as Countdown's brain box, and her intelligence even led to her own range of education books and a role as a government education advisor.
But while Carol Vorderman was helping the nation teach their children, she was struggling behind closed doors with her own son, Cameron, and his education. Now, 20 years on, they're opening up for the first time.
And Carol and Cameron are here to tell us more. Good morning. Welcome to both of you. It's so nice to have you here. And so this is something that up until now you've kind of kept privately, more sort of as protection for Cameron, really?
Yes, as a young child, and which we'd go into, but as a mother, a single parent, you protect, don't you, like a lioness, and I didn't want him to grow up with labels and all of these different things. So, yes, this is the first time, isn't it? First time you've been on telly, Cameron.
Yeah, I know, right? So weird.
We'll look after you, don't worry. So back to those early days. When did you notice, hold on a second, this isn't quite the development that we were expecting?
Well, it's interesting, Dr. Nigat was just talking about this, wasn't she, in answer one of the questions, that there are early signs. So I should point out that Cameron, well, you can say, what are your learning difficulties?
Well, I have high spectrum dyslexia, ADD, bit of ADHD, bad short-term memory, and can't really smell well. But it's totally relevant, but just to add to the list.
Just to add to the list. And getting that diagnosis is quite difficult anyway. And
it's really hard.
It's really hard. And before you got the diagnosis, it was how you were treated initially when you first went to school. It was the reaction from teachers, the reaction from other kids, the reaction of you hearing all this stuff. What was it like, those first moments at school?
Well, you know, as a toddler, he was a really happy toddler, and then he started going to nursery and so on. That's when you start to distinguish, right, oh, hang on, something's happening here, because the teacher was saying he's really disruptive, and yet he was this sweet, happy little toddler, you know.
Yeah.
And, but I did know, because obviously I'm well into teaching, as you know, and I love teaching, and Katie was very different, Cam's older sister. And I would go teach the letters phonetically, you know, be air, like E, you know, air. Okay, air, and I go, well done, darling, you know, and we draw air 100 times. And then 3 seconds later, I go, so, Cam, what's that? Nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. So persevered. And then when we moved to London, I'd got divorced, and we moved to London briefly, and I put him in a little school. He was probably, I think, at age 4 or 5 then. And by the end of that year, they said, we can't have him here.
Wow.
We can't teach him.
You
There's
hear
nothing
that
going
so
in.
many times. We've got a friend who is going through this with a young daughter at the moment, and has been told, you know, sort of unteachable. The schools are uneducated in how to approach this. The staff have trouble helping. The kids don't understand. It's that they're not naughty. There is something else here.
I say they have beautiful minds, because they're different minds, and they need a lot of specialist help in order to
But it was happening
grow.
in your head, because you recognised it, didn't you? You are being told that you are disruptive. How were you feeling at that time? Because there was panic.
Well, that was kind of the whole thing, because when it comes to being disruptive for someone like me, it was more in like a maths lesson. They'd be like, oh, OK, what's 1 + 1? 2. OK, what's 2 + 3 to someone else? Oh, that's 5. Cameron, what's 2 + 2? And you're just so panicking so much on keeping the rhythm with everyone that you can't really focus on the question.
You feel, as it's coming down the line towards you, thinking, oh, my God, I'm next.
Yeah, like a firing
so it's
squad
easier
or
to be
something,
disruptive and to throw everyone off track.
So then when I can't answer it quick enough, they're like, OK, whatever, and then move on to the next. So anytime you would ask a question, it would be an obvious one that they, you know, answered before, and you just kind of be disruptive because you bring the whole lesson to a halt.
Yeah, and also it's a distraction from actually sort of admitting that you can't do it in a way. It's better just to distract by doing something what other people may see as naughty or disruptive behaviour.
Yes, and it's difficult to distinguish that, but Cameron was, you know, at the end of the spectrum. So they described it to me as it's almost like a Venn diagram, sorry about the maths, but 3 circles overlapping. One is dyslexia, dyspraxia. One is ADD, ADHD, and one is what's now AS, the autistic spectrum. And Cameron was, you know, in this middle. So when they have a lot of one or two of those things, some even three of those things, that's when they need enormous amounts of assistance. And so you know, the schools wouldn't take, I couldn't find a school for him, literally. And then one person said, there is this school called Fairley House, which is special. It was private, but they specialise in these children. So, you know, you take your kids somewhere and you think, oh, I hope they do really well. He had to do 3 days of tests in order to prove how bad he was. You know, you think, oh, Cameron, please don't start reading. Please don't start reading.
Just one time.
And he got into that school, and that was really the massive difference.
The trouble there is that, I hope you don't mind me saying, that's 11 grand a term. You know, so
absolutely, which is why I want to talk about it.
Phone in, you know, that support is there for a tiny minority of kids.
Absolutely.
And for you,
Yeah.
I suppose getting a diagnosis in itself is a massive step forward.
It is, and once you've told your story a week or so ago, Cam, we had massive response. I mean, thousands of parents who are in that situation. I mean, you know, I was brought up dirt poor and so on. I understand that. And I think now we want to try and help to do something about that and to start maybe a campaign or something.
Certainly a conversation.
Yeah, it's certainly a conversation, very public conversation about it.
I think that sort of the education system, the standard education system, clearly for you at that point in your life, sort of written you off in a way. It kind of written off your education. It proves that with the right help, with the right guidance, you can succeed. And this story has an extremely happy ending. A lot of hard work, a lot of dedication from you as the parent and worry and concern. But where are you now?
Where am I now? Well, I've just finished my master's degree in animation from Dundee. And now I've got my first job that I'll be starting like next week. And I'm super excited to start that. Yeah.
Did you imagine that that was a possibility at times in your life?
No, not really. Specifically, I never thought I'd get this far, as in I never thought about anything further than, you know, what the next thing would be. When I finished my honours degree, you asked me like, oh, so what do you want to do after this?
Yeah.
What is the next education step after this? Oh, there's a master's. Then I'll do that one.
But he had a first-class honours degree. And one thing, and I know we only have a limited amount of time, but the bullying when you were a teenager was awful. And one thing I would love to say to parents, because I know there are a lot of parents listening and watching who are going through this, is it's a long road. Breathe. This is a long road, because you wake up as a parent every day and this little bundle of your heart, your world is there, and they're unhappy. And there is nothing you can do. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't give up telly and teach him, but not because I wouldn't give up telly. I didn't know how to teach him.
Because you had a specific way of learning.
Yes.
So you had to find your own way through.
Yes.
It may have not been the standard way, but you had to find your own key, I guess, to unlock it.
You did, Cameron, didn't you? You actually found your own way to learn.
Yes, so as I said, with all the list of disabilities, I learned a bunch of strategies on how to deal with them all, like very specific ones. So, for example, with dyslexia, how I learn is I take the subject and will basically simplify it. So take a paragraph, turn that into one sentence. And so that way I can understand stuff. Or another way I put it is I make a manual and then I read it.
Yeah.
And that has allowed me to understand concepts better, but also it makes it easier for me to describe stuff because I, come from a perspective that doesn't understand most things. So when I'm talking to someone who doesn't understand about animation, let's say, I feel like I'm pretty confident in being able to describe it because I know what they don't understand.
What's important here, I think, is a massive positive flag to stick in it, is you say it's been difficult, the bullying was awful, but you have got a strength and you've carried that strength through, and that actually is almost an advancement later on.
I would say so. It's this resilience, isn't it, Cam?
Oh, yeah. If I have been saying this for years, if I had the option to go back in time and change, you know, my school life, which up until I was like 16, I don't think there was a single day that was above neutral in terms of enjoyment because of bullying and stuff.
Not at Fairley House. This
No,
was
no, no, no.
this
Yeah,
was
sorry.
secondary school.
Beyond that, yeah. But if I had the chance to go change that, I wouldn't, because it just taught me so much about life and how to just kind of deal with all of it, you know.
You need to write a book.
Yeah, you do.
You really do. There's a lot of kids that you could help, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, if I
First
can
person-
write it, yeah.
First person in the family to get awarded a first-class
I
degree,
know.
gone on to do a master's degree in animation and VFX at the University of Dundee, which I didn't realise. Dundee is an incredible hotbed
Yes,
of...
Grand Theft Auto.
It's all done there. Didn't even
home
know.
run, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Well done.
done.
And Carol, you're sticking around as well, aren't you? Because you'll be
Yes,
in our
to
family.
answer some questions.
Did you ever think you'd be sitting here doing...
No, I didn't, and it's so wonderful, you know, because Katie was this, you know, super clever child. She's handing in her PhD thesis this week at Cambridge
crazy.
in nanotechnology.
Oh, wow.
Right, so that's like different thing. We could find it comedic, don't
Oh,
we?
yeah, it's like this is her villain origin story.
Well
And
done.
this one.
Two very, very
it's
smart
wonderful.
kids. Thank you. Thank
Happy
you very
mum.
much.
Yeah.
Right, after the break, it's time for a family reunion. Clover and Luna, our former puppies for the